Farzy, I'm just going to say it right off the hopper here that because we have two gentlemen on today's podcast that are from Sudbury, this podcast is sponsored by Old Rock. Make sure to check out Old Rock when you're in Sudbury. And as I said, right off the hopper, that would be the Rusty Hopper, which is the blend I picked up from the Old Rock in Sudbury.
I wondered why you went with Hopper instead of Hop. Well done. And by the way, that opens up the opportunity to do a couple of things. First of all, OHL Stories on YouTube. Maybe you're following this podcast on YouTube. OHL Stories is a YouTube channel unto itself. It's got all kinds of things on there from around the game, including Chris Pope's coffee reviews, one having been done. In fact, the first one of this year being done at the Roaster in the Old Rock Roastery in Sudbury, are one of our favorite spots. So there you go. And this also reminds us to opportunities are available. farwellandpope@gmail.com is our email address. Hey, you got suggestions for guests, send them our way. Please tell your friends about this podcast. They will love it. We promise, especially this week's. We're really looking forward to this one. It's about life. It's about family. And it's all connected to the game of hockey that we love so much. I think you're going to love it. farwellandpope@gmail.com, @_Chris Pope on Twitter, @Farwell_OHL on Twitter.
And of course, if you leave us a review, and whether a star review or an actual written review, the more reviews we get, the higher we move up on charts and stuff. And then we basically gives us more credibility. So then when we go and try to get the people that you want on this podcast, they don't laugh at us.
Wait a minute. You mean we don't have credibility on our own? You're telling me that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Inflated sense of self over here.
Anyway,
hey, listen,
how was your weekend?
Oh, you know what?
You froze?
Kind of,
Oh, okay. Pardon me?
Yeah. I didn't spend a lot of time on a bus. So, there was that advantage. There was the disadvantage of, not being in a hockey arena quite as much as I would have liked to, even though it was a 3-3 for the Kitchener Rangers. Somehow we didn't spend as much time in the rink as we would have liked to, but nonetheless.
Well, that is because let's just call it out. Okay. We did something that we've never done before, and that is
we did something that we didn't want to do.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I do that all the time.
Well, that's a good point.
So both of us do. We're in relationships.
Hey-o. Deep down, we want to do it.
That was a pause. That's a dramatic pause. But no, calling a game from the radio station in Kitchener off a monitor while the Rangers were in Saginaw and in Flint. But we made it through it. This is we talked about this numerous times as the season kicked off, Farzy, and I didn't care if they wanted me to wear a mask 24/7. I didn't care if they wanted me to tattoo a mask on my face. I didn't care if they gave me no food, no coffee and rinks. I didn't care if we had stat packs. We were back, and I said, I don't care what they asked me to do. I'm not going to complain because it is the first season after a year and a half away. I understand everybody's trying to make things work, and you and I both put on our big boy pants and called a hockey game from a monitor 1,200 kilometers away.
It is my goal and my sincere hope that come December the 18th, which is the next cross-border game for the Kitchener Rangers, it's in Erie, that we will be able to make that trip. But these decisions are largely out of our hands. It's just my sincere hope. I'm going to keep nudging people and needling people and doing whatever it is I need to do here at the radio station to get them to see the light. But anyway, we made it work as best we could. Thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it.
I was a little off. I wanted to see how far away those arenas were. I said 1,200 kilometers. I think it's about 341 miles.
Yeah.
So what's
like 600 or so.
Oh no, sorry. It shows up right now. Flint is 311 kilometers. So maybe they're back though. Like I don't know. Anyway, it was an interesting time. That is for sure. But what do you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about intimidation and its role still in the game today. But before we talk about that, I want to try to intimidate you into getting back on the 50-50 train. So I'm here to tell anybody who's listening, which probably means about 6 or 7 people, that when they go to a junior hockey game, they should buy a 50-50 ticket. I don't know where Poper got this ridiculous idea that we would be better served to lay a wager on the game and then collect all of our winnings. Like, I think I know you're a bit of a degenerate, and I respect the degenerate in you. Like, I think we could do 50-50 and in-game wagering. I'm just saying that by the end of the season, even if we were to win 68 straight games betting, we might have a couple of bucks. Whereas if we get in on the 50-50, you got two things. One is you got a chance to win many thousands of dollars, or many hundreds if you're in Owen Sound. The local minor sports organization or whatever little nonprofit that's collecting the money that week for the 50-50, go buy a 50-50 ticket. None of this nonsense with wagering on the games, you degenerate.
Listen, I'm all for 50-50, okay? Especially as a fan. If I go to, let's say, an NHL game or a Blue Jay game, or if I even just go watch Stratford Warriors or Air Centennials game in the GOJHL or whatever it's called now, I will buy a 50-50 ticket. No problem. But we're at 68 games a year. You never win. You didn't win when you did it with the legend Don Cameron. You and I haven't won in 4.5 years. What's the point? You take all that money that you spend, 68 times 5, Farzy, what is that? $340 every year that you're just throwing away. Let's call it 300 because of the States games. Hold on, I'm not done. Let's take that $300, put $5 on a game in the OHL that we are not calling every day. We are calling a game. And therefore, you can make, if at the end of the year, we make $100, let's say, I think we'd make more, but $100, that's $50 in our bank account instead of 300 or what, 170 out of our bank account. It's just simple math, Farzy.
See,
because you're not going to win the 50-50.
That's where I was going to step in. Au contraire, at your 300 and change, it's half that because we take turns. So even if we bought in every single rink, it's $170. And again, look at the money, not as a loss, although I know we've never won, so you're pissing away the money, but you're essentially donating it to whatever nonprofit or charitable organization is the beneficiary of that 50-50. With the riches we reap, Poper, from working in this game. That was another pause, a deliberate one. Yeah.
Oh, you also froze, so it was perfect. You said something. Yeah.
The riches that we reap from working in this game. Anyway, throw the $5 down every other night.
But you see where I'm coming from. $340, so $170 each. Whereas if you won $100 at the end of the year,
you wouldn't.
And then we each take 50, that's a $230 swing or $220 swing. Perfect.
See? It's I see. I get the math. I like the idea, quite frankly, because it's smarter. But we're going to put the money out anyway. And then the day that our ship does finally come in, because it will at some point, we're gonna be like, oh my gosh, we've got $4,000 to split. 2,000 for you, 2,000 for me. We're gonna have ourselves a hell of a weekend, Popey.
That ain't gonna happen. I'll tell you that for right now.
Buy your 50-50 tickets. farwellandpope@gmail.com or on Twitter @_Chris Pope, @Farwell_OHL. Tell us what you think of the 50-50.
I will tell all of our listeners and viewers why Farwell doesn't want to give up the 50-50.
Why I don't want what?
I'm talking why you don't want to give up the 50-50 and the chance at winning that big $1,000 payday. Okay. Because I'm looking at a $50 payday, and I think that looks fun. But which one of us shut down OLG once?
Well, yeah, of course. But that's because it was worth thousands and thousands of dollars. That's the point. That's a whole other story. That's a whole other podcast.
You're looking at the big pie. I'm looking at the little tart, being like, I'll just have a little tart.
See, little tarts. Might as well just call me a whale for more reasons than one. Right about
I didn't know if I was allowed to bring it up, but
you did.
Is just so easy.
Now you did. So we're just going to move on from that conversation and save it for the, what are we going to call that podcast? Probably the last podcast.
The last one.
Yeah, the last one.
Anyway. Intimidation.
I wanted to talk. Speaking of intimidation, the OLG gets nasty when you start winning too regularly. Holy cow! It's not my.
Wasn't your fault.
No,
No.
they did not design the Pro Line lottery well when they first launched it.
Oh,
Not
that's
on me,
funny.
pal. Not on me. I would just like to thank Mr. Fitzgerald in my math class in grade 12 that helped me figure out a little bit of factorial information that provided a pretty big payday to help pay my way through college. Anyway,
That's all that matters.
that's all that matters. Intimidation, Chris. And I think we got to see firsthand at one of our games we broadcast last weekend that intimidation still very much has a role in this game. Mark Woolley, the captain of the Owen Sound attack, kind of ran around and did whatever he wanted in the third period in Kitchener last Friday night.
And see, I wanted to talk about this because I was listening to the post-game call-in show and I heard numerous people talk about how he should be embarrassed and that was disgusting. How can he be in this league? And I'm driving home going, did they watch a different game than I did?
Well, there's a little bit of an argument for like third man in because
no, there isn't.
With another player, like not fully in, like it wasn't like a full-on fight, but Roman Schmidt was engaged with one player and Woolley came in and made sure he got engaged with him.
But Woolley was also engaged.
Yes.
Woolley was also engaged with a Rangers defenseman who was trying to keep him away from the pile. Woolley went around him, said, get, and grabbed another guy, pulled away and said, I want to fight you instead.
I get you.
I don't think and he wasn't running. He made a beautiful open ice hit on Francesco Pinelli in the third period, in the game. I don't think he was taking liberties at all. I've seen players do 10 times worse and this year already. Like I didn't really think Woolley was that bad. He's a tough customer. Yeah, he plays physical. That's Mark every game. And you know what? Nicest kid in the world off the ice. I was listening to these Rangers, I'd assume Rangers fans on the post-game show talking about how he's running around. He should be embarrassed. That's the game of hockey. There's 8 teenagers in a pile. He's the captain of his team. He sees his teammates getting punched in the face. What do you want him to do? If he doesn't do that, he has no chance of playing pro next year. Like that's part of his game. I didn't think anything he did on the ice was over the top at all. Is he one of the few people in this league that still wants to have that aspect of the fighting and wants people to be intimidated when he's out on the ice? Absolutely. Are you intimidated when Mark Woolley's out on the ice? You better be, or you're going to find out real quick. And the same goes for the Rangers Arbor Jack guy and a long list of other people in this league. I really didn't find anything Mark Woolley did to be even remotely over the top or even worth a discussion, to be quite frank.
Yeah, and I'm with you 100% on that. I wondered the same thing, and I think I said on the post-game show, if Mark Woolley was wearing a Kitchener Rangers jersey that night, I think you'd all be calling in to say, we need more Mark Woolley. Mark Woolley's going to play like that.
Exactly.
And why it stood out, Chris, is because there has been conversation around this league specifically about it kind of being like the no-hitter league place with hockey, especially junior hockey, in my opinion, than we were 30, 40 years ago. But I'm glad that there is still room enough for a period or a game, the likes of which we saw between Kitchener and Owen Sound last week. I want a little bit of that in my hockey game. Thank you very much.
1,000%. And that goes for every hockey league in my mind. But I think it's also very important to remember these are 16 to 20-year-old teenagers. That is a time in your life where there's a lot of changes internally and physically and emotionally. And we all know that there are people, when you put on that helmet, you go out there, they forget that this is a hockey game and that you can't do certain things, and that the other player is an actual human, has parents, has brothers and sisters. And when you have a guy like Mark Woolley and a guy like Arbor Jack guy on your team, that reminds them pretty quick that, hey, you can come out here and take all the liberties you want, but if you go too far, you're going to have to pay the price. And there is 1,000% still a place in this game for that. We've talked about it numerous times. We've met in the middle. I'm okay with the whole staged fighting getting out of there, but the reactionary emotional fight, like you did something here that needs to stay in this game in order to keep people safe, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that front. And again, you want to weigh in, farwellandpope@gmail.com. or send off a tweet at _Chris Pope at @Farwell_OHL. Our guests on the pod this week, Chris, let's just be honest. We didn't really know what we were getting. We both knew one of the guys a little bit better than the other. They're brothers, but I'm so excited for this week's episode because it has just turned into, well, first of all, you and I have been doing it wrong because we touched on the sibling rivalry that you have with your older brother or your younger brother. No, you're the older one.
Yeah.
I'm the younger brother. And I were head to head because I just wanted to keep doing all the things he did, even though I was 3 years younger. So never really got along, especially when it came to sports. These guys are just a testament to the bond that brothers can forge, and they make their way through this great game together. And anyway, I love everything that you're about to hear, and I certainly hope that you love it as much as I did.
Yeah, and siblings are, it's weird, eh? Like you start your life hating this person for no reason because they're, in a room next to you.
Yeah.
And then eventually just like one day, like you're sitting there punching each other in the faces and, body slamming each other and stuff for years. And then one day you're like, this is my best friend in the world. I love this guy. It's very odd, but that was kind of my brother and I. We grew up hating each other, more so me hating him because he always wanted to be around. He always wanted to do everything I was doing. And he had a bit of an attitude. And then one day, and we hated each other. And one day we just clicked, and I talk to him every day on the phone, at least, These two brothers, though, you can tell because of their childhood and what they had to endure, as we'll get into, they were tight from the get-go. And you can tell that this brother relationship, there's some deep-rooted love and emotional trauma that they went through that they still, bond over today. But Darryl and Andy Paquette started in Sudbury, growing up in Sudbury, both played for the Wolves, but we have some Cornwall stories in there too.
The more Cornwall, the better on this podcast. Let's go bring back the Royals.
Yeah. And don't worry, John Brophy and Bill LaForge get brought up. This is one heck of a brother live. Kind of reminds me of the show Ray Donovan a little bit. The brothers get me fired up. Anyway, Darryl and Andy Paquette, brought to you by Old Rock Rosary in Sudbury.
Before we get into all of the legendary coaches that you both played for and your tours, like Cornwall gets me excited when we get a chance to talk about the old Royals franchise. But before any of that, I can only imagine what it was like growing up in the Paquette household. Two brothers, both in the game, one 2 years older than the other. So Darryl, I'm just guessing you're running along behind Andy, trying to play every single game he's at.
You froze there. I missed that last part of the question.
I just imagine that you're always running behind Andy, trying to play every game that he's playing.
Well, our life was just sports, right? So yeah, I think the biggest thing with growing up, having an older brother that was awesome at every sport, and I'm not just saying that because he's my older brother, he was, and myself and my younger brother, we just idolized him. So anything that uncle or my brother Andy was doing, we wanted to do. So whether it was baseball, football, you name it, we were doing it. But hockey was our sport, and that was something that was pretty evident from the time we were 2-3 years old. I think we had hockey sticks in our hands, and I think I was looking at pictures a little while ago of us living in the Donovan in Sudbury, and there's Andy with his Toronto Maple Leaf jersey, and we got our helmets on, and I got my Montreal shirt on, and he's shooting balls at me, right? So I was kind of naturally put into the goaltending position though.
Andy, how much did you hate your younger brother?
I
have a younger brother. So.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because there's supposed to be that sibling rivalry where you actually fight a lot. And I think there was one time and this is when I was playing junior, when I was having a rough time, he said the wrong thing once. We were playing ball hockey. So I chased him around the ball hockey thing, and I finally grabbed him by the throat. And it was it was probably one time in my life I actually wanted to kill someone. But other than that one time, and I think him going through some of the tough times in hockey, I don't think he would have ever said that statement to me ever again. But that was only the one time that we ever had a rivalry. But to be quite honest with you, very fortunate. My brothers and I we didn't have a lot growing up. So to answer the first question, our life was hockey and sports because that's all we had. I tell people all the time that, sometimes a disconnect when I'm training hockey players is that
I don't see the passion that I had. And that might be totally just an old guy, I caught the fish this big instead of it was actually only this big. But we grew up with sports, and we, without my brother, so when he was talking about being a kid, yeah, he started off as goalie by default. I mean, I'd roll up a bag of chips and throw him against the wall and fire a bag of chips at him. And that just evolved into him skating with my teams and going to the rinks and become a goalie. I know he was a player for a little while, but he became a goalie. He was very, very good at it. And because we had such a tight knit brotherhood, we cared deeply about each other's success, like that, including my younger brother who ended up being a boxer. We cared very, very deeply about each other's success, and we wanted to see each other do really well. And so, and the beautiful thing about it was it didn't take, a lot of times when you're growing up, you need a partner to work out with or go for a run and doing stuff like that. And all I had to do is tell my brother, I said, we're going running today, and we'd go running, or we'd go shoot some pucks or whatever it was. So I'd love to give you some stories about how we hated each other and hit each other with frying pans and stuff. But it wasn't the case. It was truly just brothers growing up, loving the game and playing road hockey every night and bringing as many kids with us as we possibly could. So for my brother having success that he had, it was never a surprise.
I can honestly tell you, I remember the tennis court day very well. It all started, I know how it all started because every time we would play ball hockey, they'd always want to stick me in net, and being a goaltender, I hated being in net. And it started off with just the simple thing as I wasn't trying. So I was just letting everything in, and I got, how are you going to make the OHL if you can't stop a tennis ball? And I came up with a comment, and I'm not going to say it because I could start a fight again. But man, did I run.
Yeah, that's right.
I know that was one good thing. I was a good sprinter at school and that, and I could run. But it was one of those times I'm running and I'm like, I could probably take him and I could probably run for miles. He's not going to catch me. But the problem is when he catches me, that was going to be a problem. So I just gave up. And it was, that was a scary day, actually. That was fun. But we had fun. I'll tell you, we could make a game out of anything. You give us a rock, you give us a frog. It didn't matter. We did make games with frogs. We could shoot them. Like anything you can think of, we made games out of. It was fun. I mean, I look at it like, how come I had a good glove hand? I mean, we'd wake up 6 o'clock in the morning. My mom would come in with a vacuum and wake us up and basically kick us out of the house. And we'd have a baseball glove, a tennis racket, tennis ball, and the three of us just, one would be just pounding the ball at us. We'd be catching, throwing it to the first base, second base, third base. You think we just made games up, and we carried that on like through our hockey. I mean, we played sock hockey more times in our basement where you're just on your hands and knees. We didn't have mini sticks, so we used our hands and socks, and a lot of actually we did fight over that too, Andy. That would have been we did fight over. Yeah. But yeah, we had a good time growing up. Like I mean, sports was our outlet, and I mean, I don't think if it wasn't for sports, I mean, our life would probably be a lot different than it is today. So
yep,
I think you can shoot frogs in Sudbury because they're frozen, right? Is that the idea?
Yes, they were only frozen. They were. Yeah, we did. We made we can make a game into anything, right? So
100%.
Lots of fun. Yeah.
So Darryl,
go ahead, Ferzi.
I was just going to say, with all this admiration for the older brother, let's hear your story about Andy being drafted into the Ontario Hockey League. What does that mean to you? What were you seeing happen?
Oh, it was amazing. I'll tell you, one of the, for being a busy family and traveling around in that was kind of the coolest thing. We looked forward to going to every one of Andy's hockey games, every one of his tournaments, because he was he was a star. It was awesome watching. We had a blast, and so to see the journey going through. I mean, I remember it was your Major Banamir Andy. I think it was the All Ontario's or whatever, and he won the MVP, and Brendan Shanahan won another trophy, but Andy walked away with the biggest trophy. So it was kind of cool to see, how his development, how it evolved, but it was the dedication that he had. I mean, you didn't see too many 16-year-olds other than in my neighborhood, where a guy would be dressed in the summertime, full uniform, hockey helmet on, and the worst rollerblades that you would get at the regular roller, the disco rollers studios we used to have.
Roller skates.
That's what
four-wheelers.
roller skates. And he would be, you would see him skating around the street like that in the summertime. And I mean, it just showed his dedication. And I still remember when his player agent, Anton Thun, came over to our house, and, just sitting and listening to the talk and seeing where his career might go and how it was going to evolve it was awesome. And it was a driving force for me too, because when you see your brother have that success, you want the same success, right? And and again, the encouragement for me from my older brother was amazing too. And I think when he got drafted, I got drafted. It's one of those things. It was a great experience. And just when you see someone put the work into it, and the fact that he was doing this with Canadian Tire dried out hockey sticks. I mean, Andy would play hockey games and tournaments, and it used to be so frustrating because that's what we could afford. And he'd see him go in a tournament, he'd break stick after stick after stick, but he'd still walk away with 3-4 points in a game. And it was kind of incredible to see that, because you wonder what would have happened if he had the right tools and the proper skates and the proper sticks. And it was amazing. But yeah, it was just growing up and watching him and going into the OHL was great. And then him getting drafted into the Sudbury Wolves was just another, it was an awesome thing for us, because now we could watch him play. He didn't have to move away from home.
Andy, your turn when Darryl cracked the OHL.
Well, it was interesting because I knew, parents split up early, and I know Darryl talks about me like obviously an older brother, but there's a healthy, admiration for his older brother. So I always took that responsibility pretty seriously, right? Like I wanted to make sure I was setting examples and of course happy for anything he did. That both my brothers, anything they did very well. So Darryl getting drafted, I went down. Well, funny story actually. So we went down to the draft, and we knew that he was going to get drafted fairly early. So we got into. So my dad was scared of driving on the 401, so we drove from Sudbury, and we had my dad in this little car. My dad was a passenger because he didn't like to drive. He had one of his friends driving. He had a nose the size of, you could smell the coffee in Columbia from Sudbury, Ontario. And two other adults, and then the three boys in the back. And there might have been another one. So I think there were 6 or 7 people in this car all the way to Toronto. And, we had a hotel and all that stuff. But the next morning was the draft. And I remember just trying to do something to calm his nerves. So I said, let's go for a run. So we went for a run in Toronto, sucked in some smog. That was good. And we went to the draft, but it was awesome because, to see your someone that wants to be like you get drafted in the 3rd round to a team. It was really special, but he worked his ass off, for years and years and years, and you just become proud. And that's the greatest thing. And then the thing that sucked about it though, was that, when I don't think people put this stuff into perspective a lot of the times, is that because I'm doing it with my son right now. He's 15, he's playing in the OHL, and my brother's 16, 17. We're tight, where we talk to each other every day. And the next thing you know, one of your best friends is gone. So, and back then we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have those things to keep in touch. So, you try to call someone at 10 o'clock at night and call collect, had those secret ways of keeping the phone calls short, and so it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. And, we didn't have the internet to see how he was doing. We'd have to check the paper the next day and stuff like that. So you lose a little bit of that closeness. You just want to be a cheerleader for him and see him do well. And he did. He played behind a great goalie and Rick Tabarachi. And, but the thing that I really had a hard time with, and probably to this day, wish I could have been there more for him, just to share experiences and let them know that if you're not playing today or this week or this month, it's not because you're not a great goaltender. It's because, it's just the way things are. But I probably didn't have a mental makeup to even understand that at that point. But anyways, I was so proud of the kid, and he was a great goalie, and he had good teammates. And when we talked, sometimes he was frustrated, sometimes he wasn't. But that's the biggest thing about that. Happy as hell for him. And but miss him is like crazy. He was one of my best friends.
Darryl, Andy mentions you going 3rd to Cornwall that year. This is the '88 draft. Owen Nolan, John Slaney, then you. Not a bad group to be going in with.
Yeah, that was a good group. Actually, that year, yeah, well, John Slaney was just a tremendous hockey player, like great guy. And then Owen Nolan, I mean, we all know his story. I mean, that guy was at 16 years old. I think he took on the whole league in his first week. Like he set the bar very quickly about how good he was. But, that draft was an interesting draft because I look back, like there was five goaltenders that went in it was Mike Torkia from Kitchener went in the second round. Then there was Mike Larnaduzzi, Sean Gauthier, Dan Ryder, and myself. So 5 of us went. And I know that whole year we were flip-flopping back and forth on who was going to go where. And I knew I was going to go to Cornwall. It was kind of an interesting thing when you got the phone call. I knew exactly from that phone call, that's where I was going to go. And it was such an exciting time. And that draft was cool because we, myself, John, were greeted by Dale Hawerchuk, Dan Daou was there, and they made it really special for us because Cornwall didn't have a lot of money as a franchise. I mean, when I looked at my brother when he was with the Sudbury Wolves, and I saw him, when he had some time with Hamilton Steelhawks, and he'd come home at Christmas time. That was one of the things I always look forward to, especially my first year. Is I used to see Andy come home at Christmas and you get the tracksuits and the leather jackets and they get all these fancy stuff. And I remember my first year Christmas, I come home and I had a Coke bag that had nothing to do with the Cornwall Royals, right? And they gave us a sweater, like it was one of the rugby shirts that they couldn't sell, and it was like, here you go, Merry Christmas, guys. So it was an awesome experience. Like, I mean, there was great people there, and that team, I mean, playing with Matt Schneider was another, like, what a phenomenal defenseman to be able to, to be in the net and just watch this guy, handle a puck, and his poise with a puck was incredible. And then again, the only problem with my first year is I had Rick Tabaracci. I mean, if Tabby, I don't think the plan was for Tabby to be back that year. And I remember starting and I was playing, a lot of games at the beginning of the year, and then he came down and Orville Tessier got sick that year. So our assistant coach took over. And I think there was a number of factors that come into game time then, as when, you have an assistant coach coming in and he's trying to make his mark now. And we had a good team. And with Tabby in the net, you had a chance to win every night. And with a rookie, you never knew what I was going to get. And like when Andy was talking about some of the stuff that went on in our family and the broken home, and we had a lot of distractions that we had to deal with too. So as a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old, my head wasn't into it all the time. Like, even though I thought I was mentally into it, I can let in goals pretty easily by that distraction on what might be happening at home, right? So, but yeah, that team was just a phenomenal team. What a great group of guys, and I had good friendships with Owen. My biggest problem is I lose touch with people, and part of it's a cell phone, but I'm also, and Andy can attest to this, I was the kid that would, I'd rather be at the house, just being by myself and enjoying my own company and laughing at my own jokes than hanging out with a ton of people, right? I've always been like that. And, I look back now, it's great for Facebook because, man, I made a lot of connections with guys that, I lost a lot of touch with. So, but yeah, Cornwall was awesome. It was a great place to play.
There were more than a few names just dropped there, but I have to ask, going, Owen Nolan, Rick Tabaracci, come on, Orville Tessier. Growing up in Sudbury, you guys have both talked already about the broken home and just stuff going on at home. Darryl, you mentioning that, you were often thinking about stuff at home. Did you guys both use hockey as a kind of or look at hockey as a way out?
For me, it is what it is. It's the only thing I know. I can honestly say that if it wasn't for the game of hockey, I have no idea where I'd be. No idea. It kept me in between the lines. As I train players, it's the one thing I always say to guys is, and I did this with raising my son. It's very, very important that they play a sport, because it becomes easy to parent, right? So if with my son the last couple of years, the easiest thing to do was, Dad, can I go to the dance on Friday night? Well, I know what happens at dances. I mean, dancing is not the worst thing that anybody's ever done, but it's teaching your kids that the dance is the dance, but you have decisions to make. Like, tomorrow you've got to wake up early to play hockey. Do you want to be an NHL hockey player? Do you want to get drafted? Yes. Okay, do you think it's the best decision to go out and stay up till 12 o'clock at night? Probably not. Who goes to dances? Are they hockey players? No, not typically. No, there's people that need something to do. And when they need something to do, you try different things. So my point to that is hockey keeps you in between the lines. So that was my decision growing up, is like, because we didn't have anybody to say that. No one told me that. I had to come to that conclusion to myself. I wanted to play in the NHL. So I knew that playing in the NHL, I use this term all the time with the kids that I train. I go, I knew that if you want me to go and smoke weed and do drugs, I know that, well, I thought hockey players don't do that. That's what rock stars do. I'm not a rock star. So hockey players don't do that. So when I had the decision to make, it was like, no, I'm not doing it. I've got a hockey game tomorrow. I'm a hockey player. And I took a lot of pride in being a hockey player. So it made my life decisions really, really simple. So like, and I use that for every little thing. So has hockey, where would I be without hockey? That's a great question. I don't know, because even with being in between the lines and knowing what I had to do to get where I had to go, there's still distractions. And I know what hurt me in my hockey career is I wasn't mentally strong. I was strong enough to to do what I had to do every day, and but I was missing so many pieces. Now we would have had someone like my brother Darryl, who that's been through it, or just a dad that could understand what the process of it, would have made things probably a lot better, I think. Like better results, and I would have been mentally stronger and stuff like that. But as far as just life itself, hockey saved my life 100%. Mm-hmm. And it's the sad thing today is that there's so many people as parents that they want their kids to play in the NHL or the OHL. They have no idea what that means. They don't understand that it's so freaking hard. And then when a parent puts pressure on you to and it's not your dream, let's say, like not really your dream, it never works out. It can't, because it's so hard. There's adversity and things that come your way anyways. And so anyways, yes, hockey was the thing that kept me in line. And when it came down to choosing my route in life after hockey was done, the only thing I really knew was hockey. So, I chose that, like, and obviously I have an ability to train kids and teach kids and stuff like that and coach kids. So that's, I'm doing two of my passions, but without hockey, I have no idea what it'd be. I know I wouldn't be an accountant. That would be scary. Not yours anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to, I agree with Andy. I mean, hockey kind of took us, like for me, I sometimes I look at, the difference with me and Andy, both in the OHL, and for me, being drafted to Cornwall and moving from Sudbury was probably the best thing for me.
Especially that mansion you lived in Cornwall.
Yes, that great house. Yes. Yeah, it took me away from, it just took me away from like a lot of dysfunction and turmoil. And I just found, like, for me being in high school, I wasn't a kid. I mean, I spent more time, going to school, and especially when Andy was playing it with the Steelhawks, I was the caretaker, right? I had to look after, I want to make sure my mom was safe. So I would go to school, finish school, and, run home, and then make sure I meet my mom off when she was getting off the bus, and, just checking things to make sure, where's my dad? What's he doing? Is he going to be in the house? What's going to happen? So that was kind of my life for 2 years. And it, before I got drafted. And yeah, I sometimes wonder how I got drafted, because there was so much stuff going on that, I look now, like being a police officer, the one thing I would have wished, back when we were kids, is the domestic violence laws would have been the same as they are now, because I think our life could have been differently, like in terms of just the family itself. Like maybe my dad would have got the help that he needed, where, that there would have been resources for my mom, so she would have help. And us kids would have had something, right? But we were on our own, like just trying to survive and then play a sport that we loved. And that was my safe place, going to the arena and being able to skate. And, for an hour and a half of the night, you escaped all the, the crap that's going on in the house, and you were just able to be a kid. And so going to Cornwall, for me, that was the best thing. And that's the hard part. Like my brothers and I were so close, But when I moved away, I kind of moved away, and I came back for a brief period of time, and then that was it. I stayed away. So I lost a lot of good years with my brothers afterwards in terms of just being able to hang out and keep in touch with them. But for me, if it wasn't for hockey, I don't know what would have happened. And being able to move to Cornwall, like, would my life be the way it is now? Probably not. I mean, because I think both of us at some point in time, Andy, and I mean, I'll speak for you, but we were lost. We were lost. Like, other than playing a sport, if you were to say, what did you guys want to do? We just wanted to survive, right? Just, have a normal life, and, hockey gave us that. So yeah, like, very thankful that we were good. that was a good thing, right? So
something I always say is when I was done playing hockey, and I coached Darryl actually 1 year in Sudbury. And I just found, like, I was too young to coach. I had a couple offers to go play places. I was like, I was so lost. And I said, I'll just do the coaching thing. I was a little bit too young to coach. And I said, I just need to get out of hockey. So I took, it was probably 5 years, maybe, yeah, it seems like longer, but probably about 5 years just trying to find like an actual real good career. I worked with Pitney Bowes. It was a really big company at the time. But every time I go into an office, they say, how come you're not playing hockey? You need to be playing hockey. So I said, well, I'm going to move to Windsor. No one knows me there. And so, no, that's the truth. And when I came down here, I was still trying to find what career, because I knew I had some skill and some talent. And then one day I said, you know what, I think I'm going to go get back into hockey. And honest to God, I bought some skates and a stick again, and I put on my first clinic. I actually was doing some in Toronto too. And the analogy I use to people, and I'm being very literal. If you walked outside right now and saw a fish walking around, like literally flopping around going like this, like he's saying, where the hell am I? I don't fit here. And then when I got back on the ice, and the smell and the sound and the feel, and it was like, that's exactly who I am. And that was like, so that's what hockey has done for me. It's when I'm in the rink, I'm in my, like you said, Darryl, in my happy place. I know everything that's going on, and it's just so natural. So
I want to jump back to this mansion in Cornwall.
Arzy froze up there, but what was the mansion in Cornwall like?
Well, I think it's in Rob Ray's book. It was referred to.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. I don't quote me on that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. It was nicknamed the Pork Chop Palace. So the people there were just amazing people. They were nice people,
super
people,
nice.
They were super nice people, but it was they had the nickname for that reason. And basically, we lived right under the bridge going over to Messina, New York, and Domtar was right there. So you'd wake up every morning with the beautiful smell of the paper mill. Like, it was terrible. But supper time was pork chops, mashed potatoes, and corn every single night. And it got to the point, like, my home was kind of like the revolving door. So I would have guys that were being picked up that might stay, might not be staying. And so I always had a different roommate all the time. And it got to the point where we would start, we had like basically an account at St. Hubert's Chicken, because we would just wait till they went to bed, and then off we'd go. We'd make a phone call, and, you want a ticket to the game, whatever you guys need, just get us some chicken. Like, we need something to eat, right? So but yeah, it was an interesting home. They're, like I said, they were nice people, but we had the Coke machine running 24 hours a day. Like, that's what you drank, and you had pork chops, mashed potatoes, and corn. And if they would have burnt the pork chops like my dad used to burn them, at least I could have ate them, but they weren't cooked very well. And yeah, it was an interesting place. But then the next year I lived with a family, and I mean, I give them a lot of credit. They really helped me get myself on track as a person, right? Where they were Mona was a teacher who really took an interest in me, and kind of started pushing out and making me recognize that there was more to me than just being a hockey player. So the experiences, like those type of experience, I don't think people realize how important it is for billets and being in a good billet home, especially as a young kid, and you not knowing what kids are going through as well, right? So I was very fortunate that way to have really good billets, and that kind of got me ready for life besides just being a hockey player.
Yeah, the billet thing, it's funny because when I played, there's so many guys in Sudbury my first 2 years. Guys would come in the dressing room, they go, they locked the fridge at night. I can't have a glass of milk, or another household was having nothing but hot dogs every night. And it's like things have changed. And in fact, like this year when my son got drafted, I was happy and I could keep everything in perspective. And then his coach George said when he came up to sign and stuff, he goes, "Hey, I can set you up to meet your billets." And I was all good. And then so we went to the house, and he said it's on the 12th hole of a golf course. I'm like, wow, he's going to live a better life than he's living at home, which is great. You assume anyways. So we get to the house, and it's like, it's not what I pictured. And like Darryl said, like this wasn't uncommon to have weird or different type of billets at the time. So when I went to this house, it was nice. Like he's still there, by the way. It's a nice house, but it was like different than what I pictured. So I was like, okay. The lady came out to meet us, and I was like, okay, that was different than I pictured too. So I was actually for the first time getting emotional about my son moving away, because I could remember, just as Darryl said, what if this house is, and I've had those feelings when you're moved away from home at a young age and you're sitting there in November and it's cold and it's dark early and you haven't played, or you're getting 3 shifts a game as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, and you're laying there and you're in tears and you just sit there. I just want to go home. And I was feeling that for my son. And I had a bad day for about a week. Honest to God, I'm a tough guy, I guess, but I just burst out in tears for a week until I met the Billet dad. And it makes it sound like I'm talking bad about the Billet mom. It was not that, but once I met the Billet dad, I was like, okay, everything's going to be good. And I haven't had one thing bother me since. Even he might not get as much ice time as he would like and all that stuff. Those are things you can manage. But it was those times of maybe being like extremely lonely and not enjoying the place you live at, and having terrible food. And then it was like I was feeling for him like so bad until I met the dad. And then it's been a wonderful place. So thank God.
Darryl, can you eat pork chops yet or no?
No, no, I stay away from them. I do stay away.
Yeah.
Andy, I'm curious. You get your start as a player in Sudbury, and then when you end up down in Hamilton with the Steelhawks, you're playing for Bill LaForge. The man's reputation in this league was legendary. What was that experience like for you?
If you got about 17 hours, I'll just get a couple stories in.
Got all time in the world.
Yeah, here's what I'm going to say about Coach LaForge. Yeah, all the stories are true, 100% true. And if I was doing something in Sweden, and there's another guy that I played with. Actually, Shane Corson was there too. And we were talking, and we are telling people some of the Bill LaForge stories, and you could see in their face, they go, okay, you're lying. And we're not lying. We were telling the truth. All those stories are 100% true. But here's what I have to say about him. He was good to me. He was very straightforward, very honest. He was a coach and this is something I didn't experience a whole lot in junior hockey, is coaches who were honest with you, or coaches that actually took the time to say, this is what you need to fix, or this is what you've done well. So that's the one thing I'd say about Coach LaForge, was that he'd tell you straight up, and it was up to you to fix it or not. And then he said it. He put, there was zero velvet on the sledgehammer whatsoever. He said it, and you either did it or you didn't, and you got rewarded. And so I respected him for that. But we had practices where we had to fight each other. We had drills where we had to we would do one drill where if we lost or we didn't get our 50 hits. The 50 hit was that he'd line us up at the neutral zone dots just outside of the blue line, and he would push the net within a foot of the boards, and he would just stare at the wall, blow the whistle, and 2 guys would have to come full tilt and crash till we had our 50 hits. And guys would be walking off the ice in practice with separated shoulders and stuff. And those are mild ones, by the way. But I liked him for the fact that he was straight up and honest. But if you want stories, people won't believe him. Honest to God, and probably I hate saying anything negative about the OHL because I like it so much, and how far it's come is like so impressive. I actually got to know Dave Branch a little bit, the guy that every player hates. Everybody hates him. But as I met him as a trainer and as a person outside of being a player, I have a lot of respect for him because he's made tremendous changes in the in the league for the better. It's like, it's very good. And every time he makes a decision, everybody calls him an idiot and carves him and says how much of a dummy he is, but they turn out to be generally very good decisions for the league and the betterment of players. So a person like Bill LaForge, this is a thing that the thing that bothers me a lot, is why I try to educate kids when I train them, is, coaches that are, sometimes they're just in your way. They're trying to get to the NHL themselves and they do everything for themselves and they're not really there to help you. I think the league's done a good job for the most part of having guys that, as much as they're good stories, are not good for not good for mental health of other people, for kids and players. I wouldn't want my kid around that, although got a lot of good stories. And I always tell people, I tell my wife, she goes, sometimes you don't have a lot of emotion. Like, it can't hurt you. And I go, it hurt me. Bill LaForge was my coach. You can't hurt me. There's nothing you can say or do that will hurt my feelings or probably physically hurt me.
I'm still saying, I sit back and I tell people all the time, I'm still trying to figure out some of the names John Brophy called me. I mean, that's 20 years ago, right? Like, these guys were tough coaches. But I remember the story that Andy's talking about. I remember watching training camp and they lost an exhibition. They lost one of their exhibition games and Bill had them lined up at the dots. And I remember seeing that because I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, I might be going into this league. Like, this is,
There's two things that stand out that I guarantee is not happening today. Two things that are very kind of innocent, I guess. One, at my first 2017 or 1987, our training camp t-shirts was Hamilton Steel Hawks. He had a thing, PhD, Pride, Hustle, and Desire. And then on the back, there was a picture of Sergeant Slaughter with his eyes closed like this, with his finger pointing, said, "Sergeant Slaughter's coming to get you." So that's how we started that camp. Before we got to camp, the letterhead said on the top in big bold letters that hand-to-hand combat is expected. So I don't think
is expected.
It's expected. So in 2000, you look at that. My kid's going there now. I'm glad I didn't get the letterhead saying, "Hey, Charlie, hand-to-hand combat is expected."
I don't think that's in the standard player agreement today.
No.
No. I don't think so.
Here's your education package, and hand-to-hand combat is expected.
Yeah, it's expected.
Darryl, you mentioned Brophy. You got to give us something.
Oh, that's the same thing. Like, the stories with that guy was incredible. Honestly, I have guys at work, like, I just tell them to punch up John Brophy stories all the time on Google, because I said, when you do it, you won't believe it until you read it, and then you'll have people actually qualifying and saying, yes, he did do this stuff. But I had one game. It was funny. I was playing pretty much every game, and my backup Mark Bernard at the time, Brophy gives him a game, and he goes in and he lets in 2 goals. And we're getting into it's the end of we're in the third period. He lets in a goal and he's not even playing bad. But I was playing really well and he was really playing bad. And next thing you know, Brophy, they score and Brophy pulls him. So I go on the ice and I skate down and Mark Bernard's not leaving the crease. And I'm like looking at him and Brophy's already turning red. And when he turns, he's that white hair and the red face, like, it stands out. And I'm trying to tell Mark, I'm like, Mark, just, get off the ice, man. The old man, he's going nuts right now. And you look behind us and there's Brophy, and he's already starting to bang his head off the glass and he's losing his mind. And Mark's not going off. And I'm like, Mark, you got to get off, because I'm not going back. Because if I go back, I got to deal with Brophy. Well, he finally left. And I'll tell you, I've never seen a guy have the worst week of his life. It was just, he'd be on the ice by himself, just skating. He'd be running the stairs, and he made his life. It was miserable. But you don't show up to coach. That was one of the things. But no, we've had. I think actually this is the best story. Is we were playing rally, and Kurt Fraser used to call the illegal sticks all the time, and so we're playing in rally. We're playing back to back, and we win the game. And in that game, Kurt Fraser calls an illegal stick, and of course, Brophy, with all his profanities, and he can just say one word with the F shot, and that could be his whole sentence is just that word, and you'll understand what he's trying to say. Well, that's the amazing part. And so he's yelling at Fraser, and he's totally annoyed that he called for the stick again. So we get back to our home and we're playing at Scope Arena, and their defenseman gets behind the net and he starts wheeling the puck around the net. And I think it was Aaron Downey, I believe it was, comes just down the boards. I mean, he hammers this guy. His helmet goes off, stick goes in the air, gloves fly off, and he's laying on the ice, and the whole rink goes completely silent. You know that this is a bad hit. Like, everybody was worried. The benches, everything. It's completely silent. All of a sudden, all you hear is Brophy start yelling out, "Ref, ref, get over here." Ref's like, just hold on. You know, you got the ambulances coming. Like, this is bad. And you can keep hearing them, "Ref, ref." Now we got the F shots going in on here too. So all of a sudden the ref goes, "What, bro? What do you want?" And I just mean dead silence. And all you hear is measure his stick. So they measure his stick, and we get a penalty. So it just showed he was, you know, I'll tell you, John Brophy, I have more respect for him. And I mean, you hear stories and you hear players that don't like him. But I absolutely love the man. I think the one thing I took from him was, hard work will get you in. Well, anything you do in life, if you work hard at it, you're going to be successful, or you should be. At least you're putting the effort into it. And that's all that John Brophy was about. He was just a hardworking man, and he expected you to work hard. And you know, as long as he did that, you earned his respect. And he was just, for me, he was just a solid guy. He was a Maritimer. My wife's a Maritimer, so he loved my wife when he met her, because it was a Cape Brettoner. And I remember the Christmas party. We had a girl that worked in our office that was she was a clog dancer, and I think she was like a professional clog dancer. So whatever that means, I guess she was good at it. And she was on the dance floor, and there was that Cotton Eye Joe song came on, and all of a sudden I think her name was Amy, and she's up there and she's clog dancing, and all of a sudden he grabs my wife and he says, "Show them how to do it." And she's like, "Show them how to do what?" And he goes, "You're from Cape Breton, Highland dance now." So here's my wife on the spot. And she even said it. She goes, "How do I say no to John Brophy?" So my poor wife starts coming up and she starts doing a little dance. And it was hilarious. And like, she sits down at the dance table and she's like, "Is that how he is with you guys?" I'm like, "That's mild." Like, but he just grabbed her, made her dance, eh? So, and he pushed the other girl off the floor. And he told her, "This is how it's done." So, you know, that's a team function. Yeah, dance now. It was awesome. It was funny. It was a good time. That was my wife's real first experience with him. So
I know we've been on coaches for a bit, but there's another name I got to ask about, Darryl. You mentioned Orville Tessier in Cornwall, but also Mark Crawford, coach in the National Hockey League. What was he like as a junior coach?
You know, Mark, this is the best way to explain Mark. He was still a player when he first came into the OHL, because he just retired. He was a young guy. But honestly, I think I know myself, I want to be Mark Crawford. That's the impression he left. He was such a great coach. And yeah, like I think most guys, if you were to talk to them, like his first year, I think we all want to emulate some NHL player, but at some point in time, it's like, we want to be like Mark Crawford. He was just such a good fella. He was demanding. I mean, he didn't hold anything back, but like Andy said, that's the one thing I liked about Mark was you knew where he stood. And if you weren't playing well, he would tell you. He didn't hide anything. He didn't try to sugarcoat things and make you feel like you're doing really well. He would tell you straight out. But yeah, I have more admiration for Mark Crawford. You know, I've seen him when I was living in Cape Breton and he was coaching the baby Leafs. Like, I saw him, and you know, he's always willing to talk to you. Like, he's never forgotten where he's coming from, where he came from. And he still liked me after I roll his truck. So I got to say, he's a good guy. That's a good story too.
Yeah, you got to tell that one right now. Yeah.
So Andy will be able to attest to this. We didn't drive cars. My brother and I either pushed the car or we ran everywhere we went. So when I went to Cornwall,
we'll have to explain that, by the way.
What's that?
Most people don't understand that sentence you just said.
Well, we'll have to explain it after.
Yeah.
We did we hardly drove, so we never drove a car. So, and we learned on a car that you had to use a screwdriver to start it, but you had to put the hood up. So I get to the rink, and Crow, I'm always early. This is my problem. I was always early, and Crow says to me, he goes, my buddy Rob Knuzwick just got traded from the Sudbury Wolves to us, and he said, here's the keys to the car. He goes, go get Canoe. I'm like, Crow, man, I don't drive too much, and it was a snowstorm. I'm like, I don't drive much. You're from Sudbury. Just take the car, go get him. So I'm like, all right. So I jump in the car, and I'm driving, and I get to Canoe's place, and I'm pretty happy because I've never really driven much, right? So I get him. We wheel back, and as we're going, we're just getting around where the bridge is. So you can see the arena. So we're there. We're in the home stretch. I'm rounding the bend, and all of a sudden the back starts going on me. So next thing you know, I'm doing donuts in the middle of the road. Keep the foot on the gas. Should have took it off, and I kind of pressed the gas a little hard. The next thing you know, I'm off, and I'm heading for the St. Lawrence River. And my heart, and Canoe's like, take your foot off the gas, take the foot off the gas. Well, next thing you know, we're on the side, and we're sliding into the river. So we basically had the back end of his truck in the St. Lawrence River, my foot still on the gas, and we're laying, he's laying on the passenger side, just looking at the water, and out we go. So I remember I run across the street, and I go to this elderly lady's house, and I need your phone. And I call up, and I'm like, Crow, I just rolled your truck. And, he handled it pretty good. I didn't play the next game. My stall was awesome because I came in, I had the crash helmets, I had the crash test dummies, I had racing flags. I mean, they went all out, but even after that, like, he didn't hold a grudge. And I think from what his cousin was telling me, that might have been his first car that like he outright purchased, like he already owned and didn't own a cent to it, and I rolled it. So yeah, it was fun. It was I didn't know what to expect when I got to the rink, because he did have a fiery personality. That's the one thing. But yeah, great coach.
Andy, you might have to explain the why you guys never drove and the screwdriver starting story here.
Yeah, it was my dad growing up. So my dad wasn't big on, he didn't have money, and he'd buy the cheapest car, and he always bought these cars from a little old lady somewhere for $500 or $400. So that was one thing. So he wouldn't change oil and stuff. So we'd always have to put a screwdriver in or an ice scraper in to get the carburetor open up to let enough air out and gas in and all this shit every time. So one time I remember Darryl was in the back seat of the car, and I was at the Texaco down the road, which I'll get to this story in a bit. So I was opening it up. My dad would, pump the gas and stuff like that. And it actually caught on fire while going to his hockey game. So the only thing Darryl cared about was being late for his hockey game. So, but leading up to that about not driving is like, people think that if I'm lying, I'm dying right now. We used to push our car. We'd run out of gas 5 times a week.
Oh, at least
yeah. 5 times a week. And I was just explaining this it just dawned on me the one day, because it was always, not always, but a lot of the times it was on this one street, Holland Road. So it would be about 3 minutes from our house, and our elementary school was there. And then a girl that I had a crush on was about 2 doors down from the corner. So I could imagine, like, the first day they're having their dinner, and they look outside and they say, oh, there's Zoe. Looks like Andy and the Paquettes ran out of gas. Poor guys. You imagine having that dinner one time. It happens, but when it started happening month after month, week after week, 4 days a week, like, really, come on, Dad, can you put more than $3 to $4 of gas in at a time? And that's a true story. We used to run out of gas, or if we'd go somewhere, we'd stop for gas 6 times if he was smart enough to have. I don't understand why he couldn't put a $20 bill in. Don't get it. Yep. But that's what we did.
Darryl, all this experience with screwdrivers, ice scrapers, and cars must have really worked well when you decided you wanted to be a police officer.
Started to learn how to get all right. Knew the tricks of the trade.
Exactly.
That's the funny thing. Right? Nothing ever worked. So you think one of us would have been, well, my younger brother is handy, but myself and Andy, you think we would have learned how to do anything to fix things, but no, we never did. We just pushed. I mean, that was our job.
Yep.
Yeah.
Andy, what was it like when you quit playing and then you ended up coaching your brother? He's talked a lot about Crow being one of the best coaches you ever had. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's a shot.
that's a shot. I thought that was a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? It was a great coach, and my brother. It unfortunately didn't last too long, and I didn't have as much rank with the team because I was a young assistant coach at the time. I liked kind of giving a little bit of inside scoop to him, and you know, it was just kind of more of a neat experience. But to be honest with you, in my head, I was kind of confused at the time. I was trying to coach and trying to actually do a really good job. I found, like, and this is what I think it inspired me to be a hockey trainer, is that I was just watching what the coaches did on a daily basis. And I'm like, guys are just, you're not teaching kids. You're not teaching them the game. You're not helping them. And that was the aspect that I wanted to come from, is like, if you see a kid doing well, like I said earlier, you see a kid doing well, explain to them why. If you see a kid struggling in whatever area, could be off the ice, on the ice, penalty kill, whatever it is. Guys used to just sit on the bench and just bark at them without teaching. And it was like, I was sitting there going, I don't know about this, man. Like, I don't know if that's the type of person I want to be, number one. And number two, it's like, so I had a bitter taste in my mouth, because it was like different than what I thought it could be. And you know what? Yeah, maybe I'm a genius, because if you look now, I'm not a genius, but if you look at it now, that's what coaching is. They're communicators. They're good hockey people. Like, they're better people than they were. And I know that's maybe not the nicest thing to say, but the coaches now are better people than what they were back then, because I look at so here's something. I don't know if I should say this, whatever, I'm going to say it though. When my son was getting interviewed by all these teams, like, you got pretty much every team had very, very in-depth interviews with them. I could read some of these coaches, and some of the stuff I didn't like I could see there was that, not old school is good, but I could see, you know, I could read as a hockey player and as a coach where their intentions were, what it was. So George Burnett, when he came on, we had a video call like this, and all I ever heard from George is just old school gruff, not a good person, whatever. But I told Charlie before the interview, I said, this guy's going to be old school. Charlie, he's 33 years either coaching the OHL or pro. This guy's going to be old school. Like, just answer the questions. You're not going to make this guy laugh like you did to everybody else. Well, anyways, George got on, and I think the second question was, how big are your feet? And I'm going, here we go. And he's very, you know, if you guys probably know George a little bit, he's very gruff and to the point. But he asked Charlie a couple questions, and Charlie did make him laugh. He was talking about his brother, how he's the hardest worker. And George says, well, you know, is he strong and all this stuff? And they wrestle and all that stuff. And Charlie told him, he goes, yeah, my brother's got a head like a dump truck. So George actually laughed and became human at that time. So, but anyways, it was great, because after that interview, George was asking questions, but I could tell that to be doing this for 30 years, you got to be doing something right. And his conversations were, he gave Charlie some instructions. Please do this if you wanted to touch base, whatever. Anyways, he drafts them, and everything that he says, he means. And he takes the time, like I couldn't believe it, to be honest with you. He takes the time to, you know, my son will be in the room, and he'll pull him in, and how do you feel you're doing? What do you think you should be working on? I think you're doing well, or, you know, work on this. And he's actually giving him coaching. So I asked my son on the bench, how is he? And he goes, he's teaching all the time. And I said, that's fantastic, because I can honestly say I never had a coach that actually taught the game, ever, not one piece of the game. And this guy shows you the adaptability. So I think I said I must have been ahead of my time earlier. I think that's what coaches need to do. I saw the gap. I did. I saw the gap of you know, what players needed. So when I started my training business, that's what I was looking at doing, is I knew that there was gaps and things that players needed that they weren't getting typically in their regular team. So anyways, coaching Darryl was great, but it was short-lived, and, you know.
What was it like for you, Darryl?
Well, you know, I complimented a lot of coaches. So I will say Andy was the best coach on the Sudbury Wolves. And that's because,
yeah,
in my opinion, that at that time, I don't say a lot about coaches. I actually have great memories of most coaches, but I've named every coach that I played for. Barry Trotz, he was awesome. I've never named him the one in Sudbury. So my brother was a great coach. But yeah, the Sudbury experience for me was, it was awesome to be around Andy again. And I think he's right. He didn't have, he had a lot to offer. And for a guy that just finished playing hockey with, you know, the guys on the team, like, I mean, he was a year out, really, right, Andy? I think it was a year. And, you know, to be able to come in that room and coach them and have the respect from those guys, because they knew Andy as the clown back then. And then all of a sudden now he's a coach and he's got to be serious, and they did listen to him. So I take that was great. So yeah, he was an excellent coach. Just the role, I don't think he was given a big role. And for me, just being there that year, or for my short time in Sudbury, wasn't really where I wanted to be. And I'm not sure if that coach really wanted me there either. So, and it was one of those, it was probably the saving grace though, because I went to a team that we had our little moment out in Kingston, a little FU battle between coach and player over a trade that was made. And I kind of was, you know, threatened that your career could be in the stands and that type of stuff. And for the first time in my life, where I was always that kid that would sit back, and like I said, I always take all that stuff that was going on in my family, and you know, now I'm back in Sudbury and I'm back into this stuff. And then I had a coach say that, and it was the first time I actually said, you know what, I've listened to everything a coach says. If the coach told me to stick my, you know, run through the boards, I would have done it. But when that was said, it was kind of, you know, this is the time I'm going to stand up for myself, and you're a coach, but I am going to speak up, because I don't really care what happens to my career at this point. Because at that time, it was just kind of like, I'm somewhere I don't want to be, and put me wherever you want. And if you want to put me in the stands, well, that's not going to happen, and I'm going to control that. And the best part is we had it. I was supposed to go to the bus. I ended up playing, got first star. And then the next day I was basically told I had to apologize. And the only thing I apologized was for playing really good. And I was very, it was one of those times where I was actually very confident in myself, and they were asking me questions on, you know, do you regret what you did? And I'm like, no, I don't. Because do you regret what you did? And who's apologizing? Because I'm not going to apologize. And then the question came out, well, you know, we might have to trade you. And, you know, is there any teams you don't want to go to? And that's the only time I let my guard down. I said Owen Sound, and I got traded to Owen Sound. So it worked, right? And the only reason I didn't want to go to Owen Sound was just basically because I was, you know, the OHL pushes school a lot more than they did when we were going to school. And I was in a, you know, they didn't have a semester school year. I would have lost more school. And you know, I came to the realization, if I don't get drafted this year or nothing pans out, what am I going to do? Because I was, you know, I was a guy that sat in the cafeteria and I watched people play cards. I didn't even learn how to play cards. Like, you know, that's how dumb like some of the decisions you were making, right? So, but yeah, so you know, it turned out for the best. I ended up moving to Amherst, Nova Scotia. I played for Bill Riley, who, you know, we talk about coaches who you trust and who are honest. And I got a chance to play for Bill. And, you know, one of the things that Bill told me is he said, I'm going to get you to university and you're going to play pro. And he said, I guarantee you that. And, you know, at first I was like, yeah, whatever. But then the more I listened to this guy and the way he coached, and again, everything he said was true. Like he never lied to me, and it all worked out. I mean, and what he said happened. So I made the right decision, and it was probably the best thing for me. So the trade to Sudbury actually turned out to be a benefit.
Andy, for you, when you left or when you started coaching at Power Tech, did you get asked to go over and help coach with Igor Larionov?
Yeah. It's so what happened was, when I started my business, it was the first clinic I ever did, because I didn't know how to do marketing and stuff. The first kid I had sign up was a 6-year-old kid with snot all over his face. And I said, oh, this is probably not going to be the best one. But he signed up for like 6 lessons. I'm like, wow, this is not the way I want to go. But what happened was Ryan Wilson, I don't know if you remember his name, played in Colorado a bit. He was in he was getting drafted, and Kyle Wellwood were around, and some of those guys that were coming up saw me on the ice, and they came up to me and said, "Hey, can we spend time with you on the ice?" So my business like did a real quick pivot, right?
turn,
And
yeah.
for the good. And so I was able to start training very good hockey players, and it was what I actually wanted to do. There's just like passion coming out of, never an alarm clock. Let's just get up and go. So after doing this for about I'm trying to think, maybe it was 10 years, I always had a goal of I knew I was pretty talented in what I was doing, and I had a different approach than a lot of people. So I was skating out in Detroit, and an agent called me and said that Igor has a kid that wants to skate with you, and a couple Russian kids. He's going to be at your practice or at your session tonight in Detroit, and can you take a minute and talk to him? I'm like, yeah, for sure. So, probably 20 minutes in, half an hour in the session, Igor opens the door on the side of the rink, and he goes, "Andy, come here," in his heavy Russian accent. He goes, "You're coming to Russia with me." So I said, "Oh," dude, I got like this thing here, but like, can I talk in a bit? He goes, yeah. But he waited and waited. So I stepped off the ice. He goes, "Okay, go get your passport." I go, "What are you talking about?" Like, so we're getting undressed, and he said, like, I want you to come and train, because at the time he was starting an agency, and he had a lot of, well, you know that you probably know that he's got a lot of players in the NHL that he was representing. So he wanted me to go over there and train a whole bunch of his Russian players. So there's 14-year-olds right up to pros. And so I did that. Yeah. So he called me over, and I did that for 10 days. And then the next summer he started bringing them over to Detroit. So I would spend time working with him. So we built a really nice relationship. And one of the great things, so if there's any kids reading this, or parents, you can tell us, or your kids, as dumb as I was as a kid, the other thing besides hockey that saved my life is reading. I just got into reading, not like Huckleberry freaking Finn or anything like that, but like I'd pick up a magazine and read about Wayne Gretzky, and I'd watch TV, and I'd try to emulate what Guy Lafleur did with his half bald head coming down the right wing, cracking a slap shot, and I'd practice that, and I'd try to find the essence of where that came from, and I'd go to the outdoor rink and practice it, right? So but when I talking about reading, I started getting books, like I'd see, the Sutter brothers wrote a book, so I'm going to read that, because inside those books, there's all kinds of details of what they did. They didn't have the internet. So I immersed myself in reading and learning what other people did, and said, okay, that's a good thing. Oh, he ate that. He ran. Guy Lafleur used to run 10 miles a day. Oh, I'm going to start reading. He also had a cigarette when he got to the rink, but but I'd pick up the story. So two of the books I read, one was Vladislav Tretiak's book, and there's so many nuggets in there that was so good. I also read Tarasov's book. He was the godfather of hockey in Russia. So life came full circle that day, because he was sitting beside me, and obviously there's not that much to talk about. He can barely speak English, but I asked him a couple questions about it. I said, "Did Tretiak actually have to carry a tennis ball all the time?" And he looked at me and goes, "Well, how did you know that?" I said, "Oh, I read this book." And I said, "Is it true that they did somersaults on their pads in the snow?" He goes, "What? How do you know that?" And he got really interested in me. So it probably helped the relationship a little bit more. So so I did go to Russia, and one of the things I tell my kids a lot of time that I train is that there's going to be pressure, right? Like, pressure comes at you in a lot of ways. So for me, I had a goal of going to Europe several times and training the best of the best players. So when Igor asked me that's where the rubber met the road for me. It's like, okay, here's a chance, big guy, to make a mark. You're either going to succeed or you're going to fail. So as I was flying over there, I had a late flight, and everything was going wrong on the way there. And as I was flying into Moscow, I was sitting there, I go, look at the traffic here. What is going on? Like, this is crazy. Am I going to be good enough? What are the nets like? What are the ice like? This is crazy. So I went there, and I had an interpreter the whole time, which is it was the biggest problem of the whole thing, is being able to get my communication out without, I'm not in Russian. So anyways, the thing that saved my life is that I was prepared. I was prepared. I was a seasoned veteran at training people. I could pick things out. And I had a personality, and I built a really good relationship with Igor, and he trusts me with players. and it was a great thing. I passed the test, got hired several times again and again. And that's why I tell kids read because that little bit of reading, I got an opportunity and I was able to kick the door open and it felt real good. So a dumb kid from Sudbury went to Moscow and trained some of the best players in the world. Pretty awesome.
Well,
Really
that's going to be the headline of this podcast.
Some kid from Sudbury.
This is totally random, but you're both Sudbury guys. You both played for the Wolves. And I want to preface this by saying I really do love it there. That the building's got character. I know it's not looking as good as it could, but it's got character. But please tell me from your perspective, especially as players with that Wolves team, what the hell is with that stuffed wolf? I swear it's the same one that was there when you played that's still there today.
Yeah, it's the greatest question. Everybody looks and goes, what the hell is that about? When you grow up as a kid, everyone thinks it's like local people think it's the greatest thing. But actually, when you step back and you watch that thing go to center ice, you just sit there and go, you can do better.
Exactly.
You can do better. Yeah.
Poper wants lasers coming on their sides.
Yeah. Like seriously, you can do a lot better.
I think spotlights just going down on the goal score. I think it looks sweet.
Yeah, like, or maybe a real wolf, like do something.
Just a real wolf.
I'm just a little disappointed. I know they're looking at getting a new arena and that, but just growing up in Sudbury and, as kids, I mean, that's where we grew up. Like that was our Montreal Forum, right? That's where we all wanted to end up. And so for me, knowing that, a nice new arena is a good thing. I don't know. I'm kind of against it. I don't want it. I want them to keep the old Sudbury Arena there. I don't want change. I just think that it was good for us, and I know they have to grow, but I'm disappointed because I just think it's such a great old arena, and I hate losing the old arenas. I just think there's so much character, and
I agree. I agree 1,000% because obviously doing a lot of the training I worked with the Spits quite a bit, Sarnia quite a bit, and going to these new rinks, it's cool as a kid. But when I watch a game, like Chris Draper all the time, hey Andy, I got some tickets. You want to come I'll get you in to watch a game. I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't want to go because it's like you're at a game and you've got someone selling pizza, you got a cheerleader here, you got the Jumbotron, you've got all these distractions. I'm like, I just want to watch a game. Just want to watch the game. And I find that in the OHL a lot of the times there's like we were in Sarnia the other day, or no, not Sarnia, in Owen Sound on Saturday. I went and watched my son. Crazy dad, absolutely nuts, driving to Owen Sound on a Saturday night. But
from Windsor.
Yeah, from Windsor.
Yeah.
So
short
but
trip,
it was like all the kids say, oh, it's a barn, it's a tin can, it's loud. And so I walked in there and I'm like, yeah, this is a hockey rink though. This is actually a hockey rink. And, there's some bad seats where, if you watch the game long enough, you're going to get scoliosis because the seats are bad. But we went to the end, the end zone behind Owen Sound's net, and it was pretty much full. And there's passionate hockey fans there. They're booing kids, and it's like there's that old school hockey field like the Sudbury Arena used to have, or probably still has. And it's like, okay, now I'm at a hockey game, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. I do love Guelph. I love Kitchener. You guys have a phenomenal rink. It feels a lot different as a dad or as a fan than it did as a player. But that's what you want as a hockey rink. Like it's so cool. Your fans in Kitchener, they're whatever those things are, they're smacking them and they're yelling, and it's fantastic. And Guelph is really it's a great rink. It's a newer rink, and they still have a little bit of that feel. I like that. But some of these rinks you go to, and it's like it doesn't even seem like a hockey game anymore. And I love that old Sudbury Arena. Like Darryl, you're 100% right. Great place.
Arzi, you want to ask my question for me, or do you want me to do it?
No, go ahead.
The Windsor Arena.
Not the new one though.
No, the old one. You guys got to have some stories from going into that barn.
Well, my son asked me where's my favorite place to play, and I always said it was Windsor. So my first road trip, we were playing, and they had always big, tough. The glass on the above the boards were both that big. People hanging over. There's a guy that used to play a trumpet at the end of the rink, and the neutral zone was about this big. But it was honestly my favorite place to play. It was my favorite place to play ever. It was nuts, and that's talking the same thing. That's what hockey was about. Like that's an experience. And even for the players, like man, it's here's a neat thing for you is I got recruited to a couple of schools, and one of the first interviews I did was at Lake State Superior. I was 15, I think. And Frankie Anselon at the time illegally brought me in because we were playing in a tournament in the Sioux, and he showed me the place, and it was big, and the band and all this stuff, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. So he talks to me after. He goes, "Would you like to be a Laker?" And I went, "No, I want to play for the Sudbury Wolves, honest to God." And he looked at me like I had three eyeballs, and he couldn't, because he didn't get it. And so I was coaching in the States. We used to do a lot of the tours. Went to Miami, went to Notre Dame, we went to Michigan State, Boston College, and all these things. And it's the same thing as you go into these places and they're overdone. And you go, they show you the locker room, and it's like, if I was a bazillionaire, I wouldn't have a place this nice. I don't want this. The dressing room and the weight rooms. It's like, and I'm not joking. At Notre Dame, I think there was like 40 treadmills, 40 bikes, 40 rowers, 30 different Olympic lifting machines. Is like, what do you need it for? It's like too much. Whereas as you go into like, just using something familiar, Windsor, I go to, because I used to train the guys. It's a nice weight room, and it's all you need, and it feels like a hockey place. And I think it's my point here is that I think a lot of times now is the kids get pampered, the fans get pampered, everything's like, it's got to be nice and beautiful. And we're playing hockey. It's ugly. It's ugly, and there's a rawness to it that we're missing. And that's the one thing I miss. So the Windsor Arena, if they said we're going back to that place, I'd be fired up for the kids. It's the best, absolute best.
Darryl, we had Mike Parson on the podcast who you would have played against, and then a former Portland Pirate as well. But he was talking about getting batteries thrown at him and stuff dumped on him in goal during the game. Did you ever have anything like that?
Just pop and popcorn and stuff dropped on you. Like I remember pop just sitting in your crease. I think it's their end. It would have been the home end is where the fans kind of hung over your crease. So I remember just like being in my crouch waiting for the play coming down, and you can just feel something, and you look up and there's someone dropping water or pop on you. But like Andy said though, that I played my best games when I had people yelling and screaming at me. Like I enjoyed that. And so when you go in an arena like that, that was a blast. Like to have people calling your names, and I know I don't know. I mean, maybe we grew up a little differently as kids. Like we like that. That I don't know if the players are like that as much now, but I love that stuff. And one of the best places, we only got to play there once in the year was Niagara Falls when Brian Fogarty was still there for a small arena. And I got to bring this up because you brought up Windsor and that small rink, but we played Niagara Falls Thunder, and I'd never seen a guy as big as Brian Fogarty was that could, with such little space, skate through teams. I mean, like easily, and make it look like he had so much room on that ice, and he would just fly. And that was probably one of my moments. Like I remember just watching him, and I can still see him like just grabbing that puck and go. And you played with him, Andy, and like that guy was so. To be in Niagara Falls and it's such a small arena, to see him carry that puck and like the things he could do with it and just skate was incredible. So like it goes back to those smaller rinks. Like those were the best. And I mean, like Windsor, that was crazy. But Cornwall had a row of fans too that yelled and swore at me quite a bit as well. So everywhere I went, I left my mark.
Well, believe it or not. The other thing that you miss about the old barns is because you guys some of you have different classes that show up to the arena, right? And at the new rinks, like if you watch the Toronto Maple Leafs game, it's corporate, and the corporate crowds, it's not a fun crowd to play against. But if you go back to the old Sudbury Arena, the old Oshawa rink, Kitchener was awesome. Like I love Kitchener too. I'm not saying that because I'm on your podcast. Well, what a phenomenal place! What a phenomenal organization. But one of the things that you miss, because you get so many stories out of this too, is the people that used to sit right behind the bench.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 of them were homeless and toothless, and they had their jerseys and they had beads on, and they'd be just couldn't wait to talk to you, and they'd be yelling at you all game. And it's like, that was the best. And you don't get that anymore. Now you got the 75-foot glass behind you, and it's almost silent in there, and it's all you hear is that the tick 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 of the puck, and it's almost boring now. I mean, it's not boring, but it's a different feel. Like the old rinks were the best. I feel bad for. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. You feel bad for.
I just feel bad, like for the kids coming up right now. They miss that. Like I'm telling you, they miss it. It was old school. You could smell the popcorn, the hot dogs, guys smoking darts. I mean, I'm glad they got out of that, but all that stuff was part of the game, right? Yeah, old Export A score clocks.
You'd love Flint.
Oh yeah.
Flint's a great place,
right?
I love Flint. Yeah, that's a great spot.
That's a barn.
Yeah.
They had to put that high glass behind the bench, Andy, in Kitchener because Pete DeBoer was the coach. And the fans are behind, so we can't bring our kids anymore.
Yeah. If you use the F word once.
Once or twice, maybe. Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah.
Andy,
Andy, you played against him, didn't you?
I did play
Pete
against him.
DeBoer?
He was in Windsor. Yeah. He played in Windsor. Yeah, he good player. Good player. Like they had such a good team that a guy like him was a bucket of vanilla. They had guys like Glenn Featherstone. I mean, we used to call him Featherhead. Krasowski's and Graves and Kelly Kane and David Haas. Guys, I think 18 of their guys scored 50 goals one year. So Pete DeBoer was just like a not a stay at home, but like just a good solid player. But he wasn't extremely tough, so it was kind of nice to be on the ice with him because he wasn't gonna turn you inside out and he wasn't gonna beat you up, but he was doing all the little things that were good, right? So great player though.
We've kept you guys a while here, but Popey got his question about the Windsor Arena. I have to come back, and Darryl, you just touched on it a moment ago, but I'm on a mission, and it's only half joking, to get Cornwall back in this league. I miss the market. I really do. Let's take a trip down memory lane. What was it like playing there? What's the market like?
You know what? It was an awesome place. Like the fans were good. They just didn't sell out like that. I think it's a small town, right? But I know they're trying to. There's a group out there. I sit on that group because they're trying to get the team back in Cornwall, and I'd love to see it there. It was a great experience for me. I loved it there. Like I said, the fans are great. The atmosphere was good. The only problem with their arena is it's set up high, so you have like that cement wall that kind of comes around the arena. So you kind of miss the fans and the glass part, and that's the only thing I didn't like about the arena. But the Civic Center is beautiful, and they had passionate fans. And I think if they were ever to get a team back, they would do well. I mean, I don't understand. I'm looking at even the American Hockey League having a team in Belleville. Doesn't make sense to me. But can they afford going back in the OHL? I don't know. I mean, I think when Cornwall moved to Newmarket, we all know the story of the owner of the Cornwall Royals at that time, and I think that was a shock to everybody in Cornwall. I think if he wouldn't have moved them to Newmarket, they'd still have a franchise there now. So yeah, I'd love to see it there. I mean, it's your blue collar arenas. Like that's what you want. They're true hockey fans. And I mean, when you look at their Bring Back the Royals Facebook page, I mean, they're bringing up stuff like they're showing the Memorial Cup wins. They talk about Orville Tessier. They talk like they're entrenched in it. So they want it back badly. And I'd love to see it. I mean, that'd be, that's a special place for me. I mean, when we talk about your teams you played for and that, but like Cornwall would be my, that's my spot, right? That's the place that made me realize that I was a good hockey player. So I love Cornwall. So I hope to get the team back, but I don't know which team would be going. That's the only problem, right?
For sure.
They had really nice jerseys. Didn't Sudbury? Were you guys up there when they had like those off purple ones?
No.
Are they purple? No.
Wait,
the Sudbury ones?
Yeah, I thought Sudbury at once brought like a third jersey and they were like purple. I know the Knights had a real bad purple one, but I thought Sudbury did. Yeah, I thought Sudbury went purple once.
I think the Knights had that green and purple.
They had that green and purple.
That was terrible.
Yeah, I thought Sudbury had a.
I wish the Sudbury Wolves would go back to the green and yellow.
Green, they were awesome.
They were the best uniforms, and Cornwall's uniforms were really they were nice colors.
Yeah, I like them. Yeah,
and when you find the history of the symbol, it was made by like an 8-year-old or something that drew royals, and that's how it came in. And it looked good though. It was great. Yeah.
All right. Well, Farzy mentioned that we kept you guys long enough. I just have one real quick one, and it might lead to some disagreement, but we'll see. We have you two in a room. We'll throw in your brother Ray Jr. and we'll throw in Owen Paquette. Who's walking out of that fight?
I go first. I go first. He's sick, man. This is, it's he's gonna kick our ass. He grew up like we all. Here's a funny thing: is my brother Ray J was a boxer, and Darryl and I know I spent some time at the same boxing club as Ray J, and I think Darryl did a little bit as well, maybe not as much. I can't really remember.
I was doing the karate to stay flexible.
But Gord, his coach is someone that we knew personally. He used to come to our house all the time when Darryl was 17, 18, I was 18 or 19, 20, something like that, working with my brother. So it was a really nice relationship. But Owen has taken this, like, here's the thing, like, I know it was kind of a joking question. He would kick our ass. I know that. But the beautiful thing about this is why hockey is so awesome too. Darryl learned how to coach. He just understands the principles of life. He understands like hard work, and it's the same principles as hockey that goes into boxing. Maybe I'm wrong. The details that people miss, Owen's taken care of. But the thing with this kid is probably would have been a good athlete in anything he did, but he chose boxing. Dedicated. But people don't understand is that I know that he gets up and he gets his runs in. He lives, eats, sleeps boxing, and he's incredible at it. He's going to have incredible success. And there's, I texted him the other day just saying, I know we don't get to see each other very often, but I'm guarantee I'm going to be there when you win your medal at the Olympics. He's going to do it. He's awesome. He's it's one thing to say it when a kid is just talented. Things happen, but this kid goes through the grind, and I don't see him every day, but I just know the work ethic that he has, and he's an incredible kid, and probably more importantly, he's a good kid. He's earned like the Boxing Canada. I know Darryl is probably not going to say stuff like this, but he stands out in the crowd, doesn't just box. People are out there, complimenting him on his boxing, but also complimenting him on how much he participates in the off ice, outside of the ring and in the classroom, and all the things to learn, which makes him a great student. He's going to have nothing but success. And you know what? When boxing, and you got to deal with Everlast, unreal. Kid's amazing. And I say that because I don't say that very often about an athlete, because I've been around them. And when someone amazes me, I got to tip my hat to him. And he is actually amazing. It's awesome. So he wins.
He's beating me.
As simple as that.
He's my son, but yeah, he's. I think the one thing that both my son and Andy's son Charlie have the advantage is just having two dads that have been through things, right? We've both been through adversity and that, and what I'm very fortunate of is I don't have to coach them, even though I do coach them to some extent. I don't have to wake him up in the morning and say, you got to go for your run. He does it on his own. So it's that self-motivation that, I always look around the rooms of all the guys I played hockey with, and you look at the best players and you always sit there and say, what is it with them that makes them the best? There's something in their character. There's something innate that they have, and you might not physically see it because a lot of them are so calm and cool before games and just how they are, but their preparation is always that much better than everybody else. But there's something about them that they do, and they have this excellence, and I can see it in him that he just has this desire that you can't just, you got to have it within, like I can't explain it. And then the fact that we have him with who I think is the best coach in Canada, it is this Gord Apolloni, whose resume is so long, and you watch how he coaches, and I compare him to some of the coaches that I've had, and like I look at Barry Trotz, and that guy's a genius. And when you get to play for someone like that and see how they can analyze a game and just make changes so quickly, that's how his coach is. And it's and they've formed a really good relationship. And the unfortunate part is my kid is going to do what Andy and I and Charlie are doing now, and he made that decision that he needs to move to Sudbury because his goal is to get to the Olympics. And I remember his, the sit down with him, which was kind of funny, is, Dad, I need to talk to you, but you moved away, Andy moved away, Charlie moved away, and I got to move away if I'm going to make the Olympics. And, he recognizes it. To be the best, you got to go after it. And I'm not going to stand in his way, and I'm going to let him go. So he's going soon, and it's going to be a hard day for me because that's, it's your best friend, right? My kids are my best friends, but it's for them, and he'll do it. And then again, if we all have to be in the ring, it'll end up being him and my younger brother, and then I'll take my son.
We'll take the youth.
Yeah,
I'll take him for sure. Yeah, I know he's pretty good. So.
This is the second time we've had brothers on this podcast, but I don't think we've ever had one that's more focused on family, truly. This has been a great chat, guys. Honestly, thanks so much for all the stories. And I think we dropped more names in this podcast than any other one so far. So lots to feast on, but this has just been a riot. Thanks a million.
Well, this is fun for us because we don't get a chance to do this too often. So it's nice to be able to, spend some time with your brother too and talk about things. And I'm sure we could carry this on for hours. But this is great. I appreciate it, Mike. It's been nice to do this.
Yeah, we might have to do round 2 so we can get the frog story. And we still haven't heard about Owen Nolan, Tessier. We can probably get a few more Brophy stories.
Yeah. We would be definitely willing to do that. But I wanted to ask you guys a question before we take off here. Like, first of all, thank you for having us. Great. I'll tell all my followers that do the podcast. We got thousands of them, so I'll
That'd be great.
give you guys a shout out. But number 2, more importantly, is next time Guelphs and Kitchener, Uncle Andy's going to be there. Would you guys typically at the games?
Oh yeah, we'll be there.
So I'll hunt you down. We'll have a coffee or say hi, or
you come to that booth.
Pop up to the booth. Absolutely.
Okay, I'll do that. All right, you'll recognize me.
Oh yeah. You can't, and you'll be easy to find us, the 2 bald guys at the very top.
Hey, you know what they say there's no marble that grows on cheap furniture. So good for you guys.
Love it.
What a way to end it.